All right, here we are. We're in Excel, the full program. So I highly recommend you download and install that. You have access, you have the full credentials. They have a lot more functionality. You can use the online one or Google and Apple's version of it. And you don't have the full some in the past the trend lines didn't have the full fits and everything. So I just recommend you download and install it. If you don't because your computer's slow or you have too much stuff, then you can do most of it and then go to a computer lab or use a departmental laptop and move it over. I recommend you can email, but I recommend you have a OneDrive with your Hotmail, your email account. And so use that and you can ask the TA or me about it. So what I do in my spreadsheets is the first one's kind of index, kind of say what the stuff, especially something like this where I use it once a year. You will have it. You might as well fill up that folder with files. So you have a ton of space for things like this. They take nothing compared to videos. And so, only delete it when you're certain you don't need it anymore. Okay, so we're going to cover entering data, calculations, graphing, data tables, and so on. And so you have usually three, sometimes one, and then you can always add more sheets, and then you can rename and delete and do stuff like that. So here we're going to use it today. We're going to do some things. And let's say that we go in the lab and we measure the length and always keep the units and we measure in inches. And we start measuring and we have that. And when we see this redundant value, that's where Excel's really good. We can say, I want this cell to equal that cell plus one. And then I can grab the bottom corner shift and fill down, and now it'll do that. All right. So additionally, I could have said that this cell, I can say I want it equal and then type in the formula bar. I want it equal to this cell, which is A2. So A2, and you can see the color plus one, and then do the same thing. All right. So the thing is, when you look here, all of them, they look like numbers like we entered it, but it's all referenced. So if I change this and instead start at five, we can see how it adjusts like that. So it can be a blessing and curse. Sometimes when you move things over, if you have a bunch of places like that where numbers are locked in, then it can be hard to find. You'll have to go and view formulas for it. All right, and then let's say that we're in physics and we're looking at the conversion and we want to get it to centimeters. And so in here, this cell is going to equal that times 2.54. And again, that redundant calculation, you can just click on this and drag down and it'll do all the calculations. I recommend just checking one calculation to make sure it's right with the calculator. And after that, then you feel down, you can have a high confidence in it. So now we're going to calculate the volume in cubic centimeters, and again, keep units, and we can see how it starts to cut off things. And so how do we get this? It's going to equal this cubed. We get that, and we can fill that. All right, and so now a couple things. One is that it's kind of overlapping each other. So if you just double click, it'll align it. We can come here on the format and we can adjust manually, fit, set it, and all those kinds of things. I like just to have a little bit of structure so it looks plain and ordinary. And so again, just editing, polishing just sends some things like that. I like a little extra space to pad it. And we can see by default, Excel likes to do this where it aligns left text and aligns right numbers. And the other thing that happens is when we do this math, see how all those digits, well, are they all relevant? No, right? And you have how to approximate significant figures, but generally you can just adjust it, click them all, and bring them down to have them uniform. Things like this where we have a small and a big one, where we have a different number of digits, then I prefer to come in scientific notation. See how that just looks cleaner and neater. And I can collect all the worksheet and align it and do stuff like that. I like to kind of bold and add a little color to it. Oop, didn't add color. Kind of fill in here and then adding a strong border with it. All right, looking better. And so these are the type of skills that you want just to be able to communicate. And Sometimes we have tables. Tables are actually, uh, well, graphs are way more useful to see a trend. We'll see that in a minute, especially in this, that power is kind of lost. And then hopefully you have an eye that this is the dominant number, not the number over here as far as it. All right, and so here, just to give you an idea, some other things you can do. We can see plain, some gray for alternates and stuff like that, just to make it more functional to read. And now let's say we're going to graph. All right, we want to graph this. And so we're always going to use scatter plot. So when you come, never use a line, all these other ones, you're going to come down to scatter. And then the thing is, do you want the lines or do you not want the lines? And what I mean is this versus this one. All right. And so rarely do you want this line. All right. The reason is that we're going to have our data points and then we're going to do a trend analysis, usually not always with it. And so when we do that, then so if we click on the data point and right click, we can add a trend line. And now what it does a linear fit. There's no error in here. And then if we were actually measuring this, now we would start to see the error in there in the trend line. And we can see how these look very similar, right? And so the difference is that then what we do is we come over here and we click display equation in R square. All right, we always have this in here. So why did not do the trend line? All right. And so that kind of clues us in. So that's why we rarely use this type. The other thing is those horizontal and vertical grids. I hate it because it kind of makes it harder to see the trend, right? The whole thing is we rarely going to have the nice horizontal. We're going to have a trend like this. So something like that. And then you can come in here and you can adjust the font and fill, do those kinds of things. Actually, it's a text box. So how do we fill? You can play with it here and fill, do a nice gradient, something crazy, and make it look nicer. All right, that's actually not nice. So, all right. Last thing is, so then when we have a plot here, then you can come to chart design, we can add elements. And the two things that we're going to do are add axis labels. So just click in there, it makes a text box, and then title. So, axis title, chart title above. So what I like to have is a caption and a title. All right. Titles are usually really simple. Caption, you have more room to kind of roughly explain it. All right. And so we want you to have one or the other, and hopefully you'll develop a sense for what is a good caption and or all those aspects of it. All right. So here, the thing is generally, what is the purpose of the title? Well, people say 90% of the people just restate the axis. So here, what do we have? We have, and we can just come in here, copy and paste and be lazy. So Control C, Control V, or Command C, Command V on Mac. So copy, paste it. And usually what people say is length in inches versus centimeters. And this is terrible because there's no additional information. You can just read that off of it. And so generally the best titles or whatever, they kind of state the trend. All right. So increasing length in inches correlates with increasing length. All right, that's long, but nonetheless, that's what you want to aim for. All right, what is the trend the data is trying to get you to see? Sometimes it's highlighting error, sometimes low error, those kinds of things. All right, so what about a text box, a caption? For that, you'll insert a text box. So we'll come over here on insert and forget where text box is. Text box, and then you can just draw one and label it figure 1, stuff like that. All right. So now you have more room where you can kind of dig in a little deeper. All right. So don't do this on the title. All right. Don't just restate the axis. Kind of think about it in the caption. You don't want to write a paragraph, but you have more room. So you should kind of be a little more descriptive. think about it, someone seeing the graph, what are you presenting and you want them to see, all right? So those are what we're going to do. So if we go back to the topics, we looked at entering data, doing the basic calculations, graphing, and making nice data tables and printing. All right. So if you copy this, then you can paste this into Word and it'll stay active, meaning that if I change these numbers, it's going to change stuff. All right. And I generally hate doing that because what if like I have a sheet and then I go change it? Instead, when you paste it, if you paste special and you do this, paste as a picture, now it's locked in and you don't have to worry about things changing. All right. So I recommend pasting as a picture. So you can just copy this, paste it into Word, and boom, you're done. And then if you're going to have them the caption, then you can use the snipping tool in PC. So if you come here and you type snipping, come up with that. Now you can grab them together and keep them so you don't have to worry about pasting it. All right. So that's how I would do it with a PC, and then with a Mac. Sure, there's something similar to it. Okay, so now the last thing is calculation. So you looked at average and standard deviation before. So let's do that. We want to insert a column over here to make a little room. And so we're going to calculate the average and standard deviation. You're going to do that in the table in that worksheet. It's going to walk you through entering numbers, doing basic calculations. You're going to calculate average to 3 different ways and standard deviation and so on. And so here I'm just going to jump to it. So Excel has built-in functions. So we can come in and we can say insert a formula, and then we can do them all, or it has the most common. And so if you do that and we say we want average here, type it in, it'll come up with it. We double click on it, it puts it in, and then it tries to guess the range. And generally, I hate that. I like to just click and know what it has. All right. So this little thing is to hide that so you can come in and more clearly do it, but you don't need it as I showed before. All right. Then we can just click OK and boom, it does it. All right. And so it carried those functions down, and that's what that did. So again, just like dragging, I can actually drag this over. And if we click on it, we have a number and we can click in there and see, and actually it's adding. Why is it adding here? This is not, should not be adding. I think I might have clicked everything. So there we go. That's the average of that. And yeah, so it had a difference between those formulas. It kind of warned it. And so actually you can just copy and paste. Or if I copy and paste it, same thing. When you paste it, it moves things that reference different areas to keep the relative position the same. So we can do that with average. And last time you did standard deviation. So the same thing, you can just say equal standard and you start to type. And now we can see there's the standard deviation of a population or a sample. We're always going to use sample. It's for less than 20. So that's what we have. So we can just do that. And again, you can fill over and boom, you can see that that's the same. And so when you're going to calculate it, you did it by hand last time. Now you can use Excel and you can see how you can use those functions. So we looked at doing basic calculations like this, where we had the repeating patterns and these volumes and stuff. And we looked at more using formulas to do more complicated kind of calculations and so on. That's pretty much it then for the basic intro into Excel. And the last thing is when you open Excel and you use it, it's the latest and greatest. One of the things that we're going to do is we're going to import data from like Vernier system. And so when you go to save it, you want to always save as, and we want to make sure it's this. When you open up the data from Vernier, it's this CSV, comma separated values, and also called delimited. And the thing is, if you do this and you do all the work and you click save, it's going to give you a warning that all your functions, are you sure you don't want to save it in Excel? And if you ignore the warning and click save, what happens is all your work is gone. The reason is it's just going to keep a snapshot of those numbers. Only in here are your graphs and formulas saved if you're in a workbook. So a habit is make sure you start, save it as the Excel, or read those warnings when you go save it. All right. So that's it.